Well, Nicholas Gibbs is here, and he and I have so much to talk about today that I hope that you guys, this is going to be, we were just talking about the Joe Rogan show. This will probably be a 2 or 3 hour show. So, buckle, buckle. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. We'll keep it to an hour, but man, it's going to be hard. All right, Nick, um, Electrek, who has become a Tesla bear and maybe even an Elon hater, released a long story on FSD and whether Hardware 3 can handle the eventual robotaxi needs. He says he's worried that Tesla could be accused of fraudulent behavior if they don't tell the truth the minute they realize that Hardware 3 won't be able to do the job. He suggests that maybe they don't know right now whether it will or whether it won't. But if they figure that out tomorrow and go, nope, it can't do it, they would have to go out to their entire group and say, hey, it's never going to be able to do the job. Reigns, 1220, who you might follow, I'm guessing you probably do, says HW3 and HW4 are similar with no fundamental differences, and their computing power remain within the same order of magnitude. If we assume that the universe has established a fixed minimum computing requirement for operating robotaxi software, it is likely that this threshold would fall between HW3 and HW4. The more likely case is that either both HW3 and HW4 are insufficient, or that both would be capable. So I am now turning to my expert to the extent that you can take your expertise in one area and apply it to this area. Do you think there's any issue about HW3 being able to handle the task? And do you think Electrek is right that if they figure it out, they need to tell everybody?
Yeah, okay, so a lot of questions in that. Let's start off with the electric piece. Should Tesla let people know as soon as they know? Um, yeah, I mean, maybe I'm getting a little too specific here, but the second you know, you need to let everyone know. I don't agree with that because sometimes we think we know something, and then you give it a week, or like, oh, actually, you know. So you obviously would want some time to digest and verify and get other opinions and see if someone else can figure something out. Something you haven't thought of. Um, and that's not something that just happens in an instant.
Right.
But I do think if Tesla finds out that um, hardware 3 won't be adequate for FSD robotaxi where people could put their vehicle in the fleet, I do think the onus is on Tesla to let consumers of hardware 3 know as soon as they have a not as soon as they know, but more importantly, as soon as they know and have an idea for reciprocity, whether that's doing an upgrade in hardware, whether that's giving a certain credit towards FSC on a new vehicle, whether that's giving a free transfer, right? Something. You don't want to sit there and say, "Yep, here's a problem, but I got no answers or solutions."
Right.
That's like the fastest way to piss me off. If
Right.
somebody comes to me, it's like, "All right, well, what's your idea?" Like, don't come to me with problems without a potential solution, even if it's a bad one. Like,
Yeah.
just like have an idea, have a point of view.
Right.
Um, so, yeah. So, and I think that's pretty obvious, right? It's not something you just keep internally and it's a big secret, and
Right.
eventually that'll get leaked out. Um, then you asked another question, which I don't remember off the top of my head, but
Do you think do you think that there's going to be an issue? Or do you think, since they've said
hmm,
on various different occasions that that HW3 is plenty adequate, do you think that they're right based on your knowledge of these kinds of systems?
yeah, I don't know, obviously, but I would venture that it won't be an issue with hardware 3. Um, it may be delayed on hardware 3, but where we see a lot of the innovation, I would say right now, well, there's innovation in a lot of different areas, but I think that's most relevant to the public is the shrinking of model sizes and the um, the efficiency that we're getting. There's a lot of waste right now with models, and I think the biggest leap forwards are really coming from how can we make them more efficient? How can we make them uh, more dense in a smaller space? And I think that's where, Tesla's probably learning a lot of new techniques, a lot of new tricks, a lot of extrapolation that they can use for a less powerful inference computer.
Mhm.
I will push back on Rains's comment. I haven't seen it. I'm just going based off the words you said. And to be fair, I don't have the hardware 4 or hardware 3 specs memorized.
Mhm.
But I would say saying that there's no difference in hardware 3 and hardware 4 compute is incorrect. So I don't know exactly what he said, so maybe I won't comment on specifically what he said, but there is a substantial difference from a GPU, CPU, and memory perspective on hardware 4 versus hardware 3. It was one of the reasons why I was waiting for hardware 4,
Mhm. Yeah.
and it's like this is like literally my wheelhouse is
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
this
Right.
specifically. But unfortunately, even though it's my wheelhouse, I don't have the specs memorized. It's been so
Sure.
long that I was looking into this, that once I got it, it's like, all right, I need to clear my own memory so that I can put other stuff in. So not really sure what his context was, but hardware 4 is unequivocally more capable than hardware 3 is, and it has to be, right?
Well,
Because it's dealing with 5 megapixel cameras versus 1 megapixel cameras. Memory is definitely boosted, so there's a lot there. And
okay.
GPUs and CPUs aren't always the bottlenecks. I think people would be surprised. Like memory tends to be the bottleneck in just in general. Memory tends to be a big bottleneck. So CPUs can be bottlenecks for GPUs. Memory can be bottlenecks for CPUs and GPUs. So there's a lot there.
Okay. All right. So, is there a realistic idea that it could be capable of the owner um, uh, turning it loose and sleeping in the back seat and still not be capable as Robotaxi? It seems to me it's one and the same.
Um, the only reason would be if, for some reason, there's a specific, like, from an FSD perspective, I agree with you.
Mhm.
It'd be the same. The only reason that I could think is if for some reason everything is so maxed out on both inference computers and the call it the infotainment compute that you have, your screen. If
Mhm.
all that is somehow so maxed out, and for Robotaxi requires a certain like user experience stack, I don't know, like I'm speculating here,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
like like something that integrates with the app or a lot of backend things for routing and stuff like that. That's not just about full self driving,
Yeah.
right? The actual mechanics of how is the app going to work, how's the network going to work, how do we know where to go, or when we're next up on a ride, or
Mhm.
it, something like that. But like I'm stretching.
Yeah.
In my opinion, if I can do full self driving unsupervised, then it can be robotaxi.
Okay.
That's how I
Okay.
see it.
All right, good. So then realistically, then truly, we can give electric their due that if this thing can't do, if you can't fall asleep in the back seat, then it has never achieved, then it hasn't achieved what it was promised anyway, much less the robotaxi business proposition. So therefore, Tesla would need to do something, which is what you just said a
Mm,
minute ago. So,
well,
yeah.
no, I don't agree with that.
Oh, okay.
I First of all, I don't think I've ever heard anyone promise anything. And I think even when you bought FSD, what you bought was a beta software with the aspirations for future full self driving. So we all took a gamble. We all did.
So
Some
would
people
you
took.
say, let me stop you. Would you then just say that whether there is a legal requirement that there might be a business requirement, a expectations uh the meeting the the massive number of people that bet early?
I Yes, it would never get down to that point. Tesla's always done right
Right,
by
right.
their end users. I mean, it's like that's the other reason why I don't agree with anything that the electric article is saying, which I haven't read. I'm just
Okay.
assuming that you are reciting it and being accurate here. Um, just giving myself an out there. But I would say they're just fear mongering. Like it's until Tesla says it's a problem, it's not a problem. That's how
Well,
I see it.
yeah,
Like, don't make problems out of things that aren't problems yet. Life's too short. Life's stressful enough. There's enough problems out there that we know of. Let's not create problems that we think may one day become a problem that aren't a problem yet, but they might because we don't know, and so they might, and they need to tell us, and we need lawsuits ready to go.
right, right, right.
Like people, like come on, it's fear porn. That's all it is.
All right, next subject. We had obviously a very big 4 days for Elon Musk with 1010, and followed by the rocket landing in the mega chops. And we had quite a few people also during that same period who are the very top leaders in their fields, just lavishing the praise on Elon. So first it was Jensen saying that he is an engineer uh, in a class by himself. Not, there's nothing, nobody else comes close. Then we have Anthony Lewandowski, who co-founded Waymo, saying that Tesla has a huge advantage in data and in the self-driving race. He says, I'd rather be in Tesla's shoes than in Waymo's shoes. Tesla already has cars on the road, some of which use semi-autonomous features for tasks such as parking and lane switching and learning all the while. Musk has the greatest fleet to do this, he said. There's millions of Teslas out there that are constantly learning, feeding back their data to Tesla to make the product better. And that's ultimately what's really going to be the differentiator here, that you have the richest, most consistent data to continuously improve over time. I would say he said that Tesla has examples of maybe 10,000 or maybe 1 million times more data than Waymo in terms of all scenarios of driving. This then was on top of Uber coming out, I think last night, it might have been this morning, and practically begging for a partnership with Tesla on future self-driving capability, or what do you call it, driverless cabs. Thoughts about all of this? All of a sudden, praise from basically the three top guys who would know anything about the driverless future.
Yeah, so with Jensen, I would say it's I wouldn't say it's any kind of news praising, and if anything, it's um it's in his best interest to, I mean, look, he's stroking the ego of his biggest client, right? Like let's make no bones about this. Without without Elon Musk, Nvidia sales would not be where they are today. Okay, is there a lot of demand for what they're doing? Yes, absolutely. But you better believe probably 20%, maybe more, of everything that they're selling. I don't know for a fact, but I would guess. Or let's be more conservative. Let's say even if it's just 5%,
Right.
5% of everything they sell is going to Elon Musk.
Mhm.
If they don't have that, they got big problems, right? Earnings will tank, stock price will tank. Not good, right? And furthermore, nobody is actually delivering results with these NVIDIA GPUs other than Elon Musk.
Right.
Okay. ChatGPT, it's like, okay, like everybody's like, all right, I get it. Cool. Like that's the status quo these days. Like it's free. Like nobody's paying
Right.
for an LLM to do what ChatGPT is doing, what Claude's doing, what was it Gemini, whatever Google's is called these days. Uh, nobody's paying for that, right? I mean, okay, some people are paying for it, but again, it's like $10 a month. Like, it's silly. So that's not exactly what Jensen wants to hang his hat on when it comes to, yes, my chips are for AI, right? You don't want, yeah, my chips are for AI, and the AI is, look at this text I can make. Like, that's not interesting, right? But if you can say, look at these vehicles that are driving everywhere, the leader in AI and autonomy. And not just that, but look what's happening with the robots. Look what's happening. The biggest supercomputer in the world is NVIDIA based. Like that's a big deal. As far as the co-founder of Waymo, actually just reposted that. Um, do you know what prompted that? I found it interesting, and I also found it interesting the way he phrased certain things. But I was curious if you know what prompted that.
I've just assumed it was Thursday, but I could be, I have no idea.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna look real quick because it's I didn't see that until today. Did you see
I
that
saw, I
beforehand?
saw it I saw it first thing this morning. That's why I said I didn't know it was from yesterday or from today.
No. Okay, so let's see. Sawyer Merritt posted that today. It looks like. Oh, okay, so this is from a Business Insider.
Okay.
Okay, so that makes a little more sense. Um, yeah, you can see he's kind of trying to be respectful to his former company, Waymo. I'm assuming former. But it was interesting. He says like they're doing some autonomous tasks like parking, switching lanes. And it's like, and that whole driving thing, it's
Oh yeah,
doing
that.
that too. You know, like literally the entire scope of driving, it's doing it. It's not just switching lanes and parking.
Right.
It's literally doing the whole. It's just funny, but it was like he was trying to hedge a little bit. Like I don't want to give them too much, too many flowers, but you know, yeah, we'll give due where it is. Um, but yeah, I found that one interesting. I mean, you're seeing that left and right. You're seeing Uber CEO come out. You're seeing, just try to put out an olive branch is what some people are saying. I would say asking for a lifeline. That's
Yeah.
how I would say it.
I
Less
said
of an
I
olive
said
branch.
egging.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I think people are definitely waking up to what's happening, especially people that matter.
Yeah, okay. All right. And then we'll move now over to Berlin. Giga Berlin receives approval for production expansion. They received the first partial authorization to expand Giga Berlin. The Ministry of the Environment said, among other things, a further large hall to be built to accommodate the additional production units, but not the production itself. Existing facilities are also to be modified and optimized. For the expansion, only areas owned by Tesla will be utilized. No further deforestation is required, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, the point of this is they're going to increase their number or their uh, potential production. This was now restated, so I was glad to see this restated. They consider their capability right now to be 500,000, and this would increase it to 1 million units. So one of my thoughts would be, will this, and also I thought it was interesting, the additional space for battery production. I thought that was very interesting. Maybe the most important part of the whole story is that they must be feeling so good about 4680 at this point that not only are they looking at 100 or 200 megawatt hours at gigawatt hours at Berlin, but maybe more than that. So that could be the biggest part of this entire story. However, if they're going to do 1 million units there, it ain't going to all be Model Y. Do you think maybe they're going to do RoboCabs there? Maybe cyber trucks, maybe even semis?
Yes,
Yes.
I think
We can go
it's
on now.
definitely yeah. I I think that they will make a European version of the Cybertruck. Um, but I think what will first come is the next gen vehicle, not the Robotaxi. The vehicle that they haven't announced yet.
Okay.
I think that will be next, and I think that car will be perfect for Europe. I think that will. Okay, again, assuming we're all operating off of rumors and speculation when it comes to this
Right.
2.5 vehicle. Well, I guess not really rumor speculation. It's literally in the earnings deck, and they've talked about it on the existing line. So
Yeah.
strike that part. But I think this will be the most sold vehicle in the world. I think it will be the most popular vehicle by far in Europe. I think they'll eat it up, especially given the current struggles in Europe right now economically. I think I saw that Germany fell into a recession today.
Oh, no,
So
It's been a while. It's been
Okay.
yeah, it was announced a couple of weeks ago that they were back in recession. So
Back and okay, yeah. So, and I think that's also, that parlays into them getting more approvals because you need something to stimulate the economy, and the best way to stimulate the economy is get people to work, expand, that hires more people, puts money in people's pocket. And guess what happens when people have money? They spend it. And how does an economy really get out of recession? Well, people spending money.
all right. So since you brought up the new gen vehicle, and of course, right now we're referring to it as 2.5 on this channel because it's not going to be the fully unboxed version, but we're assuming whatever it is, it will be, we're assuming that 2.5 and 3 will be virtually the same vehicle, but it'll just be produced differently eventually. That's my assumption. Maybe it's not yours. Now a lot of people are saying, quite a few people are speculating now that the 2.5 vehicle might actually be what we just saw on 1010, the Cybercab, but with a steering wheel and pedals. And as I mentioned in one of my posts today, if that was true, there would be interior changes. You'd have a more comfortable captain's type chair seating. You would have more places to store things in the interior. You might have a jump seat in the back or so. Anyway, there's some possibilities of changes that you would make, but that a two-person vehicle actually in this world where so many people live alone and so many people live just husband and wife and no kids, that a two-person vehicle might be just the thing.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, I think it's fun to speculate, but yes,
yeah,
by the way, I agree with you, but go ahead.
I don't get me wrong. I'm sure there'll be elements of the cybercab that make its way into this more affordable model. Um, I don't think it'll be a two-seater. I don't think there will be like jump seats. I think there will be four doors of some sort. I think we'll be able to sit, normal people, front and back seats. I do think it'll have more of a hatchback aesthetic to it, which may to some people resemble the Cybercab, but I think fundamentally you want it to look different than the Cybercab. You want to the same way if you're in New York, it you don't even need to think where's a taxi. You just know,
Right.
you see it. The same way you don't have to think about, oh, is that a school bus or not? You just know, right? There, you want it to look different than what everything else does. It should be just obvious, and you want that for the Cybercab. You don't want the Cybercab to blend in with all the other vehicles, so you want it to be just very different, right? It makes it easier. I call a Cybercab. Oh, there it is. It's very obviously that right there, and I think that's important. Again, it's why these different types of public transportation vehicles all look very different, right? So I don't think it will. But again, it's going to have elements, right? We all know that it's going to have probably a similar language because all Tesla vehicles have that similar language. And yeah, and we know that's going to have some elements of the unbox process, or at least it was going to as of the last earnings call. We don't know what we don't know. What's changed? A lot's happened probably in 3 months. But yeah, I don't think I know the speculation's been take the Cybercab, put glass on it, throw in some jump seats in the back, change the door, boom, there you go, or steering wheel and pedals. I don't buy that. I don't think that's what it is. Honestly, I would say that's kind of lazy if that's what they're going to do. I think another thing too is the Cybercab has its own line already that's going to be unique, whereas supposedly the next vehicle that we haven't seen yet will be built on the Model 3 and Y line. So
Right.
I would say that it's just going to be a mix of both, I think, because for it to be able to work in concert with the lines of 3 and Y, well, it's going to have some elements of 3 and Y, right? For it to have that overlap, I would imagine. So I don't know. That's just my thoughts.
Right. Okay. All right. Let's go down a few quick impressions. First of all, your overall impressions from 1010, because we haven't had you on the show since 1010. What did you think in general?
So obviously, I wanted more details. I think everybody did, but I'm always going to want more than what they give me. Um, my first reaction was wow. I thought the CyberCab looked really good. Um, I don't think that's the final product,
Hmm.
but I think it's really close. Um, they've obviously put a lot of thought into it. You could tell, right? Like, want to make sure there aren't spaces where you get a lot of crumbs in between seats. Just make it very easy to clean. Like they're not thinking just about making a vehicle that's low cost and then boom, it could be for robotaxi. They're thinking about, well, how do we maintain this?
Right.
How do we keep it operational? What's the functionality? How do we use it? What happens if something breaks or tear? Right? Like they're thinking about all those things. So I think they're a lot further along than what people like. People are talking about these are just prototypes. Hmm. I think it's a little more than just a prototype. You don't have 20 something prototypes. You're a little further down the 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 pathway there than just a prototype. Um, I thought the Robovin needs to happen. That's again that's just so freaking cool, and I think that's gonna have a infinite utility. Right? I mean, it could be a bar on wheels that you bring to a an event you're hosting at your house, or it could be a food truck, or it could be, hey, I don't have enough bedrooms for my house, but the family's coming over for the holidays. We could stack bunk beds in there. We have a few of them show up. It could be, people use pods and U-Hauls. Forget that. Call that up. I pack all my stuff up. It goes off to our house. You could go on and on. It could. I'm an electrician. I have a Sprinter van. Forget that. I'll just use this. I can have shelves everywhere. I can just have a seat for myself, right? You just so much more density you can have in there. It could go on and on. Like this could be so versatile. You can make it whatever you want. Um, Optimus could be in to deliver packages, right? It opens, takes packages, just go to the front door, right? So I think that's got a lot of utility. And then Optimus at the event, I I don't think what we saw is how far along they are. I feel like they're sandbagging a little bit there. Um, I didn't, based on what we saw there, I don't think there's anything new as far as Optimus's operation, movement, all that, than what we've seen already. So I think they're intensely keeping a lot close to their chests. I know Elon's made comments, a few comments before, about people copying them and taking snippets, and so I think they're keeping a lot close to their chests when it comes to that. But overall, I was pleased with the event. I mean, there was no bots fell over on anyone. No one got hurt from that perspective. There was no, oh my God, this happened with the vehicle, got stuck. There wasn't any of that. Which again, everyone can say like, oh, it was a pre-mapped area, but look, sure, it's they probably planned everything very well, but these aren't real roads, and this is a movie set. If anything, the chances for something to go wrong are even bigger. And there's a lot of drunk people, walking around. A lot of people just extremely happy and excited. A lot of fanboys and girls, lots of reporters and analysts got invited. You never know. Maybe someone wants the stock to go down and they could just run in front of something and call. You don't know, right? There's all kinds of things that could happen. But my biggest takeaway was I don't think 1010 was for us, the shareholders. And I don't think it was for Wall Street or analysts. I think 1010 was for the Tesla employees. I
Wow.
think 1010 was for the Tesla employees who've been working on all of this for so long to have a chance to display their hard work, to see people's reactions to what they're doing, and to be able to like point and talk to their family members and their friends about what they're working on. And I think it was more about boosting morale than
Hmm.
anything.
Hmm.
I really do. Like the more I saw, the more I was like, he's not really like talking to us like shareholders. He's not really speaking to Wall Street, right? He didn't give really anything specific shareholders would want.
Yeah, yeah,
He didn't give any specific what Wall Street would want,
right.
but he allowed like his employees to get excited, like, hey, let's have, because Elon's, we've heard this many times that it's in even the Walter Isaacson book, where at SpaceX they'll sit there and talk about like what would the government look like on Mars? Like, let's talk about like these things that are so far away, right? But let's dream a little bit. Let's get a little excited. Let's have some fun. I kind of feel like that's what this was. It was like, guys, we've done a lot of work. Let's have some fun. Let's see what this would be like, what the future will look like. Let's put on a show, and let's get our morales boosted. Let's, I really think that's what this was about.
Well, I wish he would take the result of having done all that, now that they've had the experience, and take my idea from 4 years ago that I had a website for 3 years. I finally took it down, where I think Elon Musk should have a theme park for everything Elon.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I will say one other thing. I also think this was intentionally to do a reveal of the Robovan and the Cybercab so that they can start testing out in the real world without people like taking pictures, seeing it for the first time in that way. They had to show it so then they can, right? Because otherwise everybody would be like, oh, what's this vehicle by Tesla?
Oh, so if they
You
want to
know,
put some in California and Texas, if they want to start putting some out in the real world before they're getting fares, but under the, what do you call it, the rules of California
testing.
testing rules, they could start doing that. Ah, wow. See, this is why we
Yeah.
have you on the show. You always have at
Yeah.
least one thing.
Because you don't want people's first time seeing this would be like, oh, look what I just happened to see when
Right.
Tesla's just trying to test it. It's like, all right, well, we need to like show it. Like we've probably done all we can up to this point. Like now we really need to do some bigger testing and let's show
Right.
it, let's demonstrate it, and let's go. So I think that's one of the other reasons.
All right. When will Robotaxi with sexy be a thing? Will, in fact, they be ready to go in middle of next year?
They will be ready to go next year.
Next year, not necessarily the middle, but sometime next year.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. By the way, I do have a new thought I had today, and that is that if you take the sexy word, the S3XY, and you add the two new products, the Cybertruck and the Optimus, you would have sexy PsyOp.
Oh,
Not bad, huh? Huh?
there you
I,
go.
I coined that. It's mine. It'll be mine forever. All right. So next, when will the Cybercab roll out? Right now, he's talking about sometime before 2027. Do you think he is sandbagging, or like Brian White, do you think it will just take that long?
I don't think it'll take that long from a production or staying up a line. I just think there's a lot from here to there, right? They you need to get the sexy robo taxi autonomous fleet set up before you get to that, right? Because you need to have some proof in the pudding,
Got it.
right?
Oh,
Um, and that will be your gateway to being pedalless, steering wheelless. So I think that's a big question mark, right? And also, when's the software ready for that, right? Is it at the end of this year? Is it midway through next year, right? When does that actually start to get deployed as far as the sexy robotaxi in Texas and California? If it's at the end of next year, all right, well, you're probably not going to be ready to just deploy,
right.
the RoboCab, until we have a little bit of data with the existing lineup. So I think it's just these timetables are kind of one depends on the other.
Mhm.
It's very serial, I think,
Mhm.
and I think optimistically that's his time frame. But I do think there's some conservatism in that. And he also said recently, forget where I saw it, it might have been a post, that he tries to aim for what, like 50% accuracy with his time frame predictions, uh, or something like that, right? He doesn't want all of them to be exactly right. He also doesn't want all of them to be, wrong. So he aims for like a 50% success rate on his predictions. But I think this one's probably going to be pretty accurate. I don't think we'll see Elon miss time frames moving forward.
And speaking of that, being accurate on numbers and stuff, I thought that was good timing today to hear about Berlin, because one of my big questions for the last week has been yes, okay, we get to 2.7 million vehicles this year, but how do we get growth next year? Meaning 2026. And now we've just talked about adding 500,000 capacity. So now we're looking like we would have overall capacities between the four facilities of over probably right at or over 4 million. So that would give us 2 years of potential.
Yeah, that's true. Can I give you a I don't want to say hot take because it's not a hot take. A reading of the tea leaves that I see that I haven't seen anybody else talk about.
Sure, absolutely. It's original. It's breaking here.
There you go. So, do you play chess, Randy?
Yes.
Okay. Well, in chess, a lot of times you sacrifice a piece, seemingly a strong piece, for a greater strategic goal.
Oh yeah.
And your opponents may think, oh, you just made a big mistake, but you know what you're doing.
Right.
And I think that's what happened on 1010. So we get done with 1010, and analysts, Wall Street, social media influencers, everybody is talking about how it was kind of disappointing. We didn't get real details. There's this question about the hardware 3, hardware 4. Did he say around 2027 or 2026, right? It's like all these things. He was light on details, all this stuff, right? He didn't answer anything. He didn't give us too much. It was real quick and short. Well, next week we have earnings. And there's a chance that margins don't look as good as they have in the past. But strategically, that event and Elon avoiding answering questions was him sacrificing a presumably strong piece, because now when we get to the earnings call, people aren't going to be focused on a potential light margin. They're not going to be focused on any of those numbers. They're going to be focused on trying to get answers about what they saw on 1010. And that's where the majority of the questions are going to be around. And that's going to dominate all the questions. Furthermore, this allows Tesla or Elon's vision of wanting people to understand that Tesla is not a car company. They're an AI robotics company. And all the questions will be about AI and robotics. So he's literally sacrificing all this like negative media, because he's funneling it all into his advantage come earnings call. So that's how I see it. I think he's just doing a next level move here. And it seems the more I think about it, the more it's very obvious that he loves strategy games. Yes. Like I feel like it's not a coincidence that this is how it's playing out.
Interesting. So yeah, he said this is not turning a new page, it's starting a new book. So I have 2 books. Oh no, anyway. So so he has started a new book with a different set of pieces and a new playing board. He further emphasized that by coincidence, 3 days later on Sunday with his catching of the booster. So he's introduced us to the future. He said, he's been talking about this is the future. This is how I see it. It's a better way. And you're saying if he hadn't done this at the call, people would have been saying, well, how come you missed on the margins again? And are you ever going to get the margins back? And what's happened to your sales? And okay, so I got it. Okay, all right.
It takes attention off of that. Yeah. I'll give you another potentially. This is I would call a hot take rather than just reading the tea leaves. what happened these past couple of days with SpaceX of catching the booster, officially having full reusability. Mark my words, it is the start of the turnaround on people loving Elon again.
Oh,
Mark my words. Mark my words. You're going to start to see things go back to the way they used to be. Mark my
well,
words. It
and
starts here.
when the election's over in 4 weeks, he probably won't be quite as visible in the political sphere, although he might be more visible in the actual governmental sphere if we do have a Trump victory. Okay, Larry, I'm going to switch to the economy now, if it's okay with you.
Let's do it.
Larry said that the current economy and the way that the markets are reacting to it is the most confusing in memory. And I know your memory is only half as long as Larry's and mine, maybe even less than half.
Maybe less than that. Yeah.
See, yours would be
At least for Larry. At least for Larry.
he's 2 years older than me, after all. So adding to the confusion is elections. And many who make predictions about the economy are obviously slanting their views right now based on their expectations or who they want to win. So they might have an economic prediction that they're making today that they're kind of making in a way that takes into consideration advantaging their candidate. Makes it very hard to think about where markets are going to be over the next 3 weeks, and even hard to think about where they're going to be in the next 3 or 4 months. How are you seeing things right now? Long bonds way up, equities breaking records every day, but over half the population says they're experiencing economic pain. So with all that, what do you think?
What do I think? I think that we are going, I think we're in a era where if you don't own assets, you're likely screwed. And the only way to survive is to have assets. Reason being is I think we're going into a let me explain this after I say this, but a hyperinflation era.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Let me explain, because everyone right now, when they think inflation, they're just thinking like CPI and all that, but that's not necessarily what I mean. When I say hyperinflation, I think that's coming from a asset point of view, whether it's real estate, stocks. I think we're going to see assets really balloon.
Mm.
And the reason for that is because we need to do something with our economy and our debt. There's an issue here. There's an imbalance. And so you're going to see rates come down. If rates come down, people are going to have more money to spend, more debt to income to buy more houses. Their businesses will be able to, cover a 5% rate rather than a 9, 10%, 12% rate, right? So there'll be more investments and now stimulate the economy. Businesses will become, more profitable, assets will inflate and all that, which is good. But again, I don't think wages will keep up. If assets balloon by $1,000, I think, or say 100%, things go up 100%. Or as far as assets, I think wages will go up, I don't know, 30, 40%, right? In comparison, I don't think wages will be able to keep up. And so that's why you have to have assets. You have to be invested in something, is my opinion. So I think that's what we're going into right now. It's a very strange time because I don't think we're going to see deflation in many areas, but we will in others. I don't think we're going to see look, I'm in Florida after all these hurricanes and everything. Insurance prices are only going to go up. Right. Property taxes are only going to go up. Housing prices, I don't think are going to go down. I really don't, which sounds so counterintuitive. But I think things are going to hold. And the reason I say it's counterintuitive is because you would think after all this devastation, people are going to leave and sell their houses. There's going to be a flood of houses on the market, right? Well, I've been watching. Go ahead.
Except you go over to Hawaii and you go to Volcano National Park and you see people building their homes on the side of volcanoes where there's been eruptions. I mean, it's like, no, no, people don't leave because there's a 1 in 100 year, hurricane event.
Well, exactly, but not just that, but okay, your house just got decimated. You're gonna get a whole bunch of flood and hurricane funds. You're gonna remodel your house essentially, so you're gonna have like a new house. And if you sell it, well, it's only gonna be after that. And guess what? Well, now you got a really nice house to sell. It just got remodeled, or you just remodel it. Why are you gonna leave? Like, should something happen again? All right, well, I'll get more money and we'll do it again. You know, I just I don't and nobody is going to want to sell their houses right now because they would probably take a loss on what they
Yeah.
bought. So it just seems to me that think assets are going to continue to get inflated. Um, so that's where I see the market right now. Now, if
Now
Trump won,
you could add to your theory about the aging of the population, where the folks who have the most assets, people over 55 years old, they got no place to spend them. They can't even spend the income that they're getting from the assets. So they're just building more and more and more assets, and they got to have ways to deploy them. So that would also cause inflation in
Mhm.
assets.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And even then, people, and this is the part where things start to perpetuate itself, right? Housing's so expensive that younger people can't buy them. So what do? They rent. And there's enough of a buying population out there to soak up everything that comes online, right? We have what, like 5 million deficit in housing that we need.
Yeah.
So that's a huge backlog to work through. So that means rent prices go up. And so if I own an asset, like, would I really sell real estate rather than just rent it out? Like, it kind of seems a bit crazy. So that just feeds back into the flame. But I do think if Trump wins, this hyperinflation isn't a problem. Reason being is, again, the hyperinflation. I know inflation is like a dirty word right now, but hyperinflation, I'm referring to assets,
Right.
right? Stock market, real estate.
Right.
But I think if you ground more manufacturing here locally, I think with what he wants to do with tariffs, which I know it's a hot topic for a lot of people, but I do think tariffs work for people who aren't playing fair. I think they're a good measure to use, and it incentivizes people to do stuff here locally, which will allow for more jobs to be had here, which will allow companies to pay more for labor, which will also allow for prices of goods to come down because they're locally made. Um, I think and then you throw in potentially Elon helping to cut government costs. Like, I think you'll have a deflation in everyday cost of goods, while you'll have hyperinflation in assets, which is kind of a Goldilocks situation.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be straight line. It's not going to be
Sure.
easy. It's going to be bumpy. And I'm sure there are going to be periods of time where it's going to look like, are we about to go into recession, or are we about to have crazy inflation again? It's, I think it's only going to be something we're going to be able to see looking back, not looking in the current situation we're in.
Yeah, and if you look at your theory, and you add in the massive productivity expectations that we have over the next 10 years, coming in everywhere from medicine to home building to automobile, transportation, everything that we're thinking about is just going to be so much less expensive to make or to deploy, that this is going to create a bunch of wealth. If the tariffs, if you still have imports after these tariffs, then the tariffs create some financing for the government, allowing you to cut taxes for the middle class. So there's a bunch of the kind of benefits that I think that Trump is talking about. But as you point out, it will never be it will never be like, oh, it's just straight up and to the right. There's
No.
going to be times when it's going to be an interesting dilemma.
Yeah, and let me look. I personally hate when people talk broadly the way I just did without like a concrete example, right? Because I'm saying there's going to be deflation while there's hyperinflation assets. So what's a good example that's very pertinent for this channel? You just brought one up. Autonomy cybercabs drastically lower the cost of ownership or just in general what you pay on a monthly basis for transportation.
Right.
No insurance, no tipping, no gas or energy, right? It gets dropped drastically. But what else happens? Okay, so you have deflation in the cost of transport, but the asset of Tesla jumps up, hyperinflation, right?
Yeah.
So there's a very pertinent example to what I'm talking about. What I'm saying is not like mythical, like perfect example right there.
And the ownership of a vehicle could turn into an asset that also goes up in value. And your business of owning a fleet of them goes up in value. You're eventually maybe going to own a fleet of Optimi that you rent out for people to use. So there's all of these kinds of things. Some people are calling it an ownership society, where folks who never thought they would necessarily have a small business owning some kind of asset that they lease or rent out to others. So
Exactly. And again, like you can just look at it like I don't know, Amazon Prime delivery, right? They've become so efficient with their supply chain, with how they have different warehouses across not a traditional model. They've employed a lot of robotics in their factories. They've automated a lot. And so what has that done? That's driven down the cost to get you your packages in the same day, in a couple hours, or overnight at the latest. But again, hyperinflation in the stock.
right.
So I I'm very optimistic that with a Trump Elon RFK, we can see that across the board, manufacturing and technology, and in our food system. I can see that happening where we have deflation plus hyperinflation assets.
Cool. Cool. Very cool. I like it. All right. So speaking of hyper uninflation, was the Dow Jones today going down 324, but my goodness, it's about time. We've got the Nasdaq going down 187 and the S&P down 44 today. Tesla actually managed to pull out a 41-cent gain, but I think it gave it up almost exactly in overtime. So it ends up at a zero, actually down 2 cents at 4:57 in California, so 3 minutes before the close. Apple was up among the Magnificent Seven. Google was also, and Amazon, but NVIDIA went down strongly, $6.47 and another 34 cents in the after hours. This was probably due to a chip company, MS, the guys in Europe that make the fabs, that MSW, forget their darn call letters. You know who they are. They're the only people that make the actual fab designs. So sorry, folks. I'm sure you'll all tell me in the comments below, but they came out a little weak on their report today, their earnings call, and also gave some so-so guidance because of China. They thought their numbers would be going down in terms of how much they'll be able to sell to China in the current quarter.
Are you talking about ASML?
ASML.
Oh, okay.
I started with the wrong letter, which threw you off. Yes. All right, so that's what happened. And NVIDIA probably was a little stretched anyway, hitting all-time highs. But that seemed to be the thing that also impacted it today. The Cathie Woods were mixed almost exactly. Did you have any thoughts about the way the market acted today?
Um, Not really. Based on what I follow, it was generally pretty flat. Uh, Not much noise. I think Tesla's pretty flat in general. Um, you know, Meta is pretty flat. Nvidia was the only real mover today, which was a very interesting move, just from a technical perspective, because it looked like it was getting ready to test all time highs, but no, I think it was a pretty nothing burger kind of day.
Okay. Well, the bonds finally hit their limit, the long bonds anyway. They were sitting there around 4.1, and they managed to actually increase in value as the yield went down. 4.04 as of now, a little tiny bit up in the pre-market. The 2-year at 3.948 and the 2-month at 4.8, almost exactly. It is up strongly. Don't know what's going on with the 2-month, and I'm never going to understand it. So maybe somebody in the comments someday will explain to me why the 2-month is still doing what it's doing, or maybe you know. Even the 3-month.
I do not.
Yeah, even the 3-month is only up like 0.7 right now, where the 2-month is up 6.7. I mean, I
Yeah,
don't know.
it is all a little wonky right now.
A little funky, yes.
And honestly, I think it has a lot more to do with. I think you'll see stabilization after the election.
Probably, yes. Oil came down heavily today, back to what I would call the more normal situation right now. Sitting at $71 now, Brent at 74.25. There's just way too much oil and way too much capacity to make more. I want to do a long thing someday on oil. So I think people, maybe everybody already realizes this, but I was kind of thinking about it today about the number of things that impact the price of oil that are absolutely out of our control or even out of our ability to predict. There's just many.
It's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, I'll tell you one of the ones that most people aren't aware of. Um, there's all kinds of. Sorry if this is boring for everybody, but there's all kinds of oil, right? Like you've got sweet, you got sour, but normally you don't just have one or the other. Normally you're using like a blend of it, and a lot of times in the States we don't have what we need to make these proper blends that we need for certain type of petrol uh, byproducts or even certain iterations of gasoline or whatnot. But we'll have to buy that externally. So we we could be fully self-reliant, but our processing plants and distilling plants aren't really set up for that. So we still have to get overseas oil
Mhm.
and vice versa, right? It's because you're trying to blend these things. It's not just one size fits all. So that's really interesting, and that's like a big one that people don't understand. So if something's happened in the Middle East, even though we could be completely quote unquote energy independent, well, yeah, sure,
So,
to an extent, we still need certain byproducts from the Middle East or from Europe, right? And so it's a global economy for a reason, and it affects down to something as simple as that.
all right. And then in natural gas, I've been talking about this for a couple of weeks, that October is the month when people make decisions about what's going to happen with the weather over the coming year. And apparently we're going to have, oh, I'm going to forget which it is, whatever we didn't have last year. Was it El Nino last year? Well, it's El Nino this
It,
year. Is that
El
correct?
Nino is last.
So it's El Nino this year, and it looks like it might be a mild one, but it will mean it's a colder winter in general. Warmer in the south, colder in the north. And anyway, if all that's true, you would expect natural gas to go up, but actually it's going down. So, but it's still fairly high at $2.48.5. So down a little bit in the pre-market. Gold flat in the pre-market. Oh my goodness. It's up down $1, but it's at 2,677. So it's not bad. That's still a pretty good place for gold. Silver down another 0.26 in the aftermarket, I mean the pre-market, but that's also still sitting at 31.67. That's quite good for silver. And copper up a little bit at 434, which is moving back down. Even though it's up a little in the pre-market, it's been moving down steadily for the last week. Any thoughts on any of the precious metals or the not so precious metals?
No, no real thoughts. Yeah, gold's interesting to look at, but that's it. I don't dabble in gold.
Okay. And the dollar is pausing. It hit some highs and it's now pausing. I think that's all we need to say. Not much movement in the pre-market. Bitcoin, though, is doing very well. Elon moved around, Tesla moved around about $500 million worth of Bitcoin. $500 million worth of Bitcoin today. It's not very much out of 31 billion or 32 billion that they have in reserves, but they moved it from one wallet to another wallet or to several wallets?
Yeah, I think they distributed their Bitcoins to different wallets.
Okay. I'm sure there are people out there who know exactly what that means
Yeah, think
and
about it as
why they would do it.
you don't want all your eggs in one basket.
I see. Okay. All right. Okay. So Bitcoin up 1,000 at 67. And I'm sorry. And then the equities, the Dow, oh boy, you could just pretty much say unchanged. NASDAQ is the only one that's hardly moving at all. Whoops. And the NASDAQ is, whoops, here we go. Only up 1625 or 0.08%. The Dow is unchanged. S&P only up 0.02%. So there you go. That's where we're sitting here at the end of the day. Any last thoughts to regale the audience with?
No, I'd just be curious to see if everybody else, thinks I'm crazy with my thoughts on Elon kind of playing a little chess game, and then that the event was more so for the employees than anyone else. And again, to be able to do further testing on the CyberCab without,
Yeah.
being able to do justice for an actual reveal.
Well,
Right? We don't want the reveal to be some random person taking a picture and posting on X. Well, I'll do it justice.
yeah.
Now I bet we see a lot more of them around testing.
Well, put some stuff in the comments below about all of that, and we'll see how everybody felt. I think they're really smart. So there you go. There's one. You get one vote.
There we go.
And as we leave you, please be sure and go back and take a look at what Brian White and I did earlier today. I think you'll find it amusing. I think it was interesting. And of course, Brian also had a couple of bright ideas that you might also enjoy hearing about. All right, that's all oh, that card will be right here. And so there you go. I think we've done it. I hear that you're continuing to enjoy building out your own new home.
Yes, it's a process. I'm
Surprise.
actually, right when we get off this, gonna have to call our flooring guy. So
Okay.
my wife and I are gonna get on the phone with him in about 2 minutes.
Okay. All right. Sorry to hear about it, but you'll have a new home.
That's true. Thank you. Appreciate it.
It's been great. It's been great talking to you guys.